I've been playing this game called Potion Craft, where you play as an aspiring alchemist setting up shop in an abandoned cottage. Customers walk in asking for potions to fix their problems, and then you chart out on this massive puzzle map to brew them exactly the effect they need using herbs to move your cursor around the screen. Now, this game is no Elden Ring. It's a much smaller title than what we usually talk about on the channel, which are these big-budget new releases that have teams of sound designers and sometimes over 500 devs in the credits. Potion Craft, by contrast, doesn't even have full sound design coverage yet. I mean, there's still a lot of silence as it's currently in development. But yet, there's something about this basic mortar and pestle sound that I love. I'm enjoying this sound more than almost any sound I've heard in any recent AAA titles. I don't know quite how to explain it, but I just feel like you don't often come across simple, interactive, tactile sounds like this in bigger games. In Tears of the Kingdom, for example, a game with incredible sound design, crafting potions is only a small part of the game, and understandably is therefore just a point-and-click menu experience. Each time you make a recipe, the same exact sound plays. But in Potion Craft, making potions is the entire game, and each step is interactive and requires you to actually physically move ingredients from your garden to your workshop and prepare them, which can lead to these beautiful sound design moments. It's really a perfect encapsulation of what I love about the indie scene right now, which is taking a small niche idea, like making potions, fishing meets horror, a scuba diver running a sushi restaurant, a bear running a bed and breakfast, and blowing that niche idea up into a full game that on paper might seem like a ridiculous or even boring concept, but against all odds it ends up being incredibly fun and addictive. So today I want to focus on the world of indie sound design a bit more and see if we can learn a few techniques from the more humble and less flashy side of game audio. Also, the last 2 episodes basically have been about explosions, so I want to do some cuter, less violent designs. That's kind of the mood that I'm feeling. Let's get the obvious one out of the way first. Stardy Valley gets hype and praise from almost everyone for good reason, but there's not a lot of talk about just how impressive the sound design is. To me, there are 2 sounds from the game that are iconic, and anyone who's spent time playing Stardy Valley would recognize them instantly. The pickaxe and the item pickup sound are both beautiful examples of minimal and super effective sound design. The item pickup sound is just joyful to listen to, and is a great example of how randomized pitch variation can be a sound design tool in and of itself. Record yourself making a popping sound with your mouth like this, and this is what it would sound like in game. It's kind of digital and lifeless, even a bit annoying, but add some random pitch variation, and all of a sudden you got this. Which is very playful, fun, and much less annoying. This sound can kind of remind us that not everything has to come from our microphone right out of the gate. Sometimes the way you implement something, in this case with random pitch variation, is even more important than the sounds you're using. This trick works just as well with tons of different short sounds, like a snap or a whistle. Now, the other Stardy Valley sound that I love is the Pickaxe Hit. This might sound strange, but I would almost trust a brand new sound designer to do a better job on this sound than someone who was a little bit more experienced. It's so easy to over-design things like this. A sound designer with a couple years under their belt might start thinking, okay, I gotta find pickaxe sounds in my library and match them to the swing and then get some rock falls and crack sounds, but none of that stuff helps here. This sound only needs 2 elements. First, a simple low thump. This tells the player subconsciously that the pickaxe has weight and that performing this action repeatedly is going to take energy. And then second, a stone material sound. This gives the player information. It tells them what resource they're collecting, and it really doesn't matter if it sounds like a pickaxe hit at all. We as sound designers have a lot to learn from simple, effective sounds like this. It's one thing to go wild and do a spaceship engine sound with a laser and a plastic bag like we did last episode, but it's often just as hard, if not harder, to know when to scale back and not over-design. Every artist can struggle with this, especially when they're first starting out. There's a desire to kind of show off every skill and every technique you know on everything you make. But of course, as most of us find out at some point, that approach doesn't guarantee a good result. In fact, it can sometimes be the biggest obstacle in your way to making good stuff. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting over some of that imposter syndrome. You might be making a sound thinking, if I design this really simple thing, won't someone come up to me and say, I'm not a real sound designer because I'm not using any crazy advanced plugins or techniques or software? But you got to trust me on this one. I've made that mistake more than enough times for all of us, and the only thing that matters is that it sounds good. Let's do a little listening challenge. Which of these chain sounds is creepier? A or B? which fishing rod sound is more threatening? Which rain sound is scarier? Of course, there's no real correct answers here, but I'd personally answer A, B, B. The chain in A sounds grimier and rusty and irregular. The fishing line in B sounds like it's tense and kind of about to snap. And the rain sounds in B feel darker and more like I'm going to get lost at night somewhere. This is what Dredge does really well, picking not only good sounds, but creepy versions of those sounds. Dredge is a scary kind of horror fishing game where at any time you can either be swallowed whole by a hellspawn water monster or collide headfirst with a hallucinated rock pillar. Everything you interact with in this game sounds like it could kill you. Just take a listen to the low gurgling bubbles you can hear coming up from under your ship as you fish. And the creaking dock sounds at the merchant stalls. Dredge is a great reminder to us sound designers that searching for the right sound is sometimes the most important step of all. If you're looking for a rain sound, spend that extra few minutes listening to tons of different options until you found the one that's got a particularly creepy mood. Another game that totally captivated me and became an obsession of mine recently was Tunic. This is one of those games like The Outer Wilds or The Witness where once you finish it, you desperately just wish you could erase your memory of it and play it again knowing nothing. And really, the sound design is the unsung hero of this game. The asset design in this game is just so memorable. Saving the game could have been boring and just sounded like this. But instead it sounds like this. What I love about the sound design in Tunic the most is that they've taken this art style, which is rigid and geometric, but also natural and organic, and they've found sound design sources that evoke the same feelings. So the scary ancient technology makes use of synthesis and heavy bit crushing. While the more magical and natural elements are supported by rich environmental ambiences and a very dreamlike soundtrack that kind of fits the lighting design perfectly. It's a great example of honoring the art style whenever you do sound design. In my career, I can only think of a couple times where the audio came before the art and helped inform some of the visual decisions in a game, but the rest of the sounds I've ever worked on were based entirely around the work that extremely talented artists, programmers, and animators did first. Tunic is such a good reminder that it's really our job at the end of the day to support the visual material as best we can. I would go as far as to say that the sound design in this game actually makes the graphics look better. I often forget just how much the game industry has changed in the last 20 years since the games that inspired me as a kid, like Oblivion, Pokemon Emerald, Sly Cooper, and Super Mario 64 were being made. Back then, dev team sizes were about 5% of what they are today. Around 15 people made Super Mario 64, roughly 500 made Starfield. 35 people made Jak And Daxter, and again, probably over 500 people contributed to Cyberpunk 2077. The AAA team of the early 2000s has become the indie team of today, and because the tools and hardware have gotten so much better, those small teams are capable of really unbelievable stuff. Almost every time a friend says to me, "You have to play this, it's one of the best games I've ever played," they're usually talking about an indie title with only a few developers. That definitely has not always been the case. Just 10 years ago, the opposite felt true. And of course, all of this means good sound design is more important than ever. Hey guys, just a quick channel update for those of you who made it all the way through the video, if you're interested. By far the most common question that I've been asked in my 8 years now of making videos is what DAW do I use, what microphones, hardware, software, plugins, workflow, etc. So I want to post a special standalone 1-hour lesson video on the Patreon going over all that stuff. So please let me know in the comments what you'd like to see in that kind of a video. If there's anything in particular about my workflow that you want to see. I'm planning on selling it as kind of a standalone $10 thing. It'll be about an hour long and hopefully it'll go up in the next few weeks. So please throw your ideas in the comments and I'll try to make sure I incorporate as much of it as I can. Thank you so much, patrons. Thank you, viewers. I'll see you next time.